You're asking me to pretend to be your wife for 90 days. Charlie Bennett blinked twice, wondering if she'd heard correctly. Across the marble table at Riverside Cafe, Jude Stephen, the Jude Stephen, billionaire CEO, emotionally unavailable perfectionist, didn't even flinch. Correct, he said. A contract marriage. 3 months. No strings. $500,000. The words hung between them, absurd and magnetic. Outside, Chicago buzzed with its usual rhythm, but inside, Charlie's world had just tilted on its axis. $500,000. 90 days. All she had to do was pretend to love a man who didn't believe in love. And yet, something in his silver-gray eyes said this arrangement would unravel far more than just her finances. 2 days earlier, Charlie Bennett had woken up to a broken heater, and an eviction notice slipped under her apartment door. The Chicago winter crept in through the cracks of her old Wicker Park studio, biting at her toes as she wrapped her little brother Max in an extra blanket. His chest rose slowly, shallow breaths betraying the effort it took him just to sleep. The hospital bills sat like landmines on the chip kitchen table. Max's last round of treatment had drained every cent she had saved waitressing, tutoring, and working double shifts at the gallery. The insurance had lapsed, the appeals had failed, and the last doctor they saw had gently said, "If you can't afford the next stage, you need to prepare." Charlie couldn't prepare for death. Not again. She'd buried her mother at 22, her father at 25. Max was all she had left. She had been staring at a cracked ceiling, willing the tears not to fall when her phone buzzed. Lily Stephen. "Are you in Chicago?" Lily, her former college roommate, a whirlwind of lavender perfume and impulsive ideas. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since graduation, and life swept them in different directions. Charlie replied, "Yes, why?" 3 dots. Then a message that felt unreal. "Lily, can you meet my brother for coffee? It's a business thing. You'd be perfect. Please." She almost laughed. The timing felt like a cosmic joke. But she replied anyway. What could she lose? That's how she found herself in front of Riverside Cafe, heart pounding beneath a second-hand coat, fingers numb despite the gloves. Inside, she spotted him immediately. Jude Stephen. Tall, immaculate, watch like a weapon, eyes like winter. The billionaire tech mogul she'd seen in magazines, on finance panels, rumored to be heartless and brilliant in equal measure. He didn't stand when she approached. "Miss Bennett." His voice was as sharp as the crease in his jacket. "Mr. Stephen," she said, sitting across from him. He pushed a folder across the table. "Lily says you're trustworthy. Smart. You don't scare easily." Charlie opened the folder. Legal documents. Confidentiality clauses. A schedule. She blinked. "You want me to marry you?" "Temporarily," he replied. 3 months. For appearances. I need a wife on paper. You need the money. I propose we solve each other's problems." Her throat was dry. "Why me? You're not from our world. You're not a socialite. You're not looking for attention. That makes you safe. And you're presentable." Charlie stared. "I'd need a week to think." "You have 2 days." He stood. "There's a car waiting. It'll take you home. The driver has copies of the contract. Good night, Miss Bennett." Charlie sat alone, the folder still open, the words blurry. She didn't know what shocked her more, the offer itself or the part of her that was already considering it. Because in that moment, $500,000 meant Max might live. And what was 3 months of her life, really? The elevator doors opened with a hushed chime, and Charlie stepped into a world of marble, glass, and silence. Jude's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Riverton, a building that didn't advertise its address because the people who lived there didn't need directions. The driver had delivered her with a single leather duffel in hand, her life compressed into one bag. A silent assistant showed her to the guest wing and handed her a new phone, a security keycard, and a printed weekly schedule that read more like a corporate itinerary than the marital routine. Charlie exhaled slowly as the door closed behind her. It smelled like cedar and wealth, like a place no one was allowed to leave fingerprints. Her room, no, her suite, was pristine. Soft gray tones, modern furniture, and a massive window overlooking Lake Michigan. She sank into the edge of the bed, heart still racing. 3 months. She could do this. She had to. Dinner the first night was at 7 sharp. Jude didn't speak as she entered the dining area. He wore a tailored shirt, sleeves rolled, collar open. He poured her a glass of wine like they'd done this 100 times. "You read the schedule?" he asked. "Yes." "Good. Tomorrow we have a public event at the Langford Foundation. You'll need to wear the navy dress in your closet. It's fitted to your measurements." "You had my measurements." He looked up. "Lily, and your social media." Charlie blinked. "You researched me." "I don't enter into agreements without due diligence." "Right, of course." Dinner was sea bass, perfectly seasoned. She barely tasted it. "You don't have to speak unless it's required," he said after a long silence. "That's comforting." Jude didn't smile. He barely reacted at all. That night, Charlie lay awake staring at the ceiling. She wasn't sure if the loneliness was hers, or the penthouse's. And yet, despite the distance, something about Jude didn't feel cruel. Just contained, like a man who built walls so high even he forgot what they were hiding. It began with music. Soft, hesitant, like someone trying not to be heard. Charlie was returning from the guest library one night when she heard it, a melody drifting down the hallway like a memory someone left behind. Piano, not classical, not rehearsed, raw, messy, human. Drawn toward the sound, she followed it to the far end of the penthouse, where a single door stood closed. It looked just like every other in the hallway, polished, seamless, locked. She reached for the handle, then paused. The music stopped. She stepped back. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and there he was. Jude, shirt untucked, sleeves rolled, eyes shadowed in the low light of the room behind him. He said nothing at first, just stared. "I got lost," she lied. He didn't answer, but he didn't shut the door either. Charlie glanced past him. Canvases lined the walls. An old upright piano sat in the corner. It was a studio. Not sterile, not cold, but bursting with colors, textures, chaos. "You paint," she said. "Not for display." She moved slowly, cautiously, as if stepping into a sacred space. Each canvas felt alive, a swirl of emotions in acrylic and oil. One caught her eye, unfinished, bold strokes, haunting. A woman with wild curls and blazing eyes. "My mother," he said softly. Charlie turned. "She's beautiful." "She was," he replied. "And this?" she asked, stepping to the side. A second canvas. Still rough, but the features were unmistakable. "Hers," she gasped. "You've been painting me?" Jude's jaw tensed. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Why?" "Because I can't explain it. I don't even understand it myself." She looked closer. The portrait wasn't flattering. It was honest. Her weariness, her defiance, her hope. He had captured her, not as a guest or a contract, but as a person. "I see strength in you," he said, "and sadness, and fire. You walk into a room like you don't owe it anything. I didn't know how to stop seeing you." Charlie swallowed. "You hide in here. It's the only room I don't have to pretend in." Silence wrapped around them, not awkward, but sacred. Then Jude stepped forward, so close she could see the flecks of storm in his eyes. "I don't let people in here," he whispered. "I'm not people," she whispered back. For a moment, the world outside that room didn't exist. And for the first time since signing that contract, Charlie wondered what would happen if she stayed longer than 90 days. The days that followed were quieter. Jude avoided the studio. Charlie didn't mention it again, but something had shifted. Their silences were less sharp, their glances more curious. They shared more than rooms now. They shared a secret. It was after a gala. A swirl of tuxedos and diamonds, speeches and staged laughter. Charlie had played her part, graceful, charming, endlessly polite. Jude had played his too, always composed, subtly protective, never too close. But in the car ride home, the air felt different. His hand brushed hers as he reached for a bottle of water, and instead of moving away, their fingers stayed. The city lights flickered past the tinted windows. "Did you enjoy tonight?" he asked. Charlie turned to him. "Does anyone ever enjoy pretending?" He didn't answer. Inside the penthouse, the silence returned. But it wasn't empty. It was thick with tension, a gravity pulling them towards something inevitable. Charlie removed her heels and walked barefoot across the cool wood floor. Jude poured 2 glasses of wine without asking. He handed her one. Their fingers touched again. "I haven't painted since you saw the studio," he said quietly. "Why?" "Because everything I want to paint now is you. But it's different. It's not about shapes or shadows. It's about ache." Charlie's breath caught. He moved closer. One step, then another. "If I kiss you," he said, "I won't be able to keep pretending." "Then don't," she whispered. And he kissed her. Not out of obligation. Not because a contract required closeness, but because desire had become undeniable. It was a slow burn. Months of glances and unsaid words bursting to the surface. His hand cupped her cheek. Her fingers gripped his collar. And when they finally pulled apart, their foreheads rested together, breath shallow. "No more pretending," she whispered. His voice broke. "No more pretending." In that moment, the lines blurred completely, and they both knew this arrangement had become something far more dangerous. The morning after felt different. Sunlight spilled into the kitchen as Charlie made coffee, barefoot in one of Jude's crisp white shirts. The silence between them had changed. Not tense, not cold, but fragile, like glass stretched thin. Jude appeared, dressed for work, but slower than usual. His tie hung loose around his neck, and his eyes carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid thoughts. "Morning," she said, trying to smile. He nodded, poured coffee, and joined her at the island counter. They sat in silence. Then he stood. "I have back-to-back meetings. I'll be late tonight." "Okay." He hesitated. Last night was unexpected. Charlie looked at him. Regretful? No, but risky. Her heart clenched. "Do you always analyze feelings like financial projections?" she asked. He didn't answer. That evening, she waited. The minutes bled into hours. Midnight came. No Jude. Charlie curled on the couch, staring at the dark window. Her phone remained silent. The next day, he returned just before dawn. She heard the door, the briefcase set down, his footsteps in the hall. He paused outside her room, then walked away. Later that week, during a charity dinner, they posed for photos. His hand rested lightly on her waist. Cameras flashed. Strangers admired the perfect couple. But behind every smile, Charlie felt the growing distance. She asked him once in the elevator, "Why are you pulling away?" He stared at the doors. "Because wanting you wasn't part of the agreement." "What if it is now?" He said nothing. That night, she cried silently into her pillow. Not because he didn't care, but because he clearly did. and still couldn't let himself feel it. Days later, she walked past the studio. The door was locked again. Inside, she imagined unfinished canvases gathering dust. And outside, two people who had fallen into something real, without a plan for what to do with it. The end began with a knock. Not from Jude, but from Vanessa. Charlie opened the door to find a tall, elegant woman standing there, perfectly dressed in winter white and red lipstick. "I'm here to see Jude," she said coolly. "You must be the temporary wife." Charlie froze. "He's not home." Vanessa's eyes swept the apartment like she owned it. "He used to leave a key for me." Charlie said nothing. She didn't need to. The air was already thick with old history. Vanessa left a business card on the console table. "Tell him I came to collect what's mine." When Jude returned, Charlie handed him the card. He didn't flinch. "She stopped by," she said. "I saw her," he replied. Charlie waited. He said nothing else. That night, she didn't eat dinner. The studio door remained closed. The silence between them stretched until it felt like walls. "I need to know what I am to you," she finally said, voice cracking. Jude didn't look up from his laptop. "You're part of the agreement." Her heart shattered. "No," she whispered. "I'm not." She stood, walked to the door, turned once more. "If I leave, I'm not coming back." Still, he didn't move. Charlie packed quietly. No sobbing, just silence. She slipped the wedding ring onto the nightstand. The elevator ride down felt like a funeral. Outside, snow had started to fall. Freedom never felt so much like grief. Charlie moved back into her old Wicker Park studio. It was smaller, colder, and lonelier, but hers. She hung string lights over the windows and reopened her art blog, which hadn't been touched in over a year. To her surprise, people began reading it, commenting, donating. She took Max to every appointment, this time without panic or the weight of impossible bills. The final transfer from Jude had arrived silently. No note, just a deposit that covered everything. She could have sent it back, but she didn't, because it wasn't pity, it was a promise fulfilled. Then one morning, a courier arrived with a large, wrapped canvas. No return address, just her name. She unwrapped it slowly. Her breath caught. It was her. Again, but not the tired, sad version from before. This time she was laughing. Her eyes were lifted toward a sunbeam painted in warm gold. And in the corner, barely noticeable unless you looked for it, was a second figure, Jude. Only his hand was visible, brushing against hers. Charlie sat on the floor for hours, staring at the painting. Her fingers traced the texture of the brushstrokes like they were a letter he couldn't bring himself to write. She closed her laptop, picked up her phone, and typed, "Charlie, thank you for the painting." No reply. The next day, she got a message from Lily. "Lily, you're coming to my show Friday, right?" Charlie hesitated, then agreed. That night, at the gallery, she wore the navy dress Jude once chose for her. Not for him, but for the woman she had become in his presence. Halfway through the exhibit, she saw him, standing alone in front of a photograph, hands in pockets, eyes stormy and soft at once. "Jude." He turned slowly. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. He walked toward her. "Hi," she said. "I didn't know you'd be here," he replied. She tilted her head. "Then why are you?" His voice was low. "I was hoping I might see you anyway." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry," he said, "for letting you walk away, for not fighting." Charlie blinked back emotion. "I needed you to say something. Anything. I was afraid if I said the wrong thing, I'd lose you. And then I realized I lost you anyway." She exhaled. "So what now?" Jude looked her in the eyes. "No contract. No arrangement. Just me, asking for another chance." Charlie stepped closer. And what if I say yes? Then I'll never stop painting you the way I see you. Fierce. Honest. Mine. Jude didn't wait for an answer in the gallery. He simply extended his hand, silent and steady. Charlie stared at it for a long moment, then placed hers in his. No more words were needed. They left together. No contract. No expectation. Just two people, fractured but healing, choosing each other. Weeks passed. They didn't label anything. Didn't rush. Jude started joining Charlie and Max at the clinic, quietly listening, sometimes sketching in his notebook. Charlie reopened her small art studio, this time with his support but her vision. She painted again. So did he. They hung their pieces side by side at Lily's next show. One morning, Jude brought her coffee and sat beside her on the studio floor. "You know," he said softly, "I think I believed I didn't deserve love, that it was for people less broken." Charlie leaned into him. "We're all broken. Love doesn't fix that, but it makes the pieces easier to carry." He smiled. 3 months had turned into forever, not in some cinematic way, but in small, quiet moments, in ordinary mornings, in shared silence, in the way he now said, "I see you," and meant it fully. The last scene wasn't grand, just Charlie and Jude, painting in the studio with the windows open, wind in her hair, his brush against canvas, and on the easel between them, a new portrait unfinished. Because real love, they had learned, is never truly complete. It evolves. It deepens. It chooses you back. Moral of the story: real love doesn't follow contracts or conditions. It finds you in the quietest places, when you least expect, and asks not for perfection, but for presence. And sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings come disguised as endings.